All right, magic makers. I hope you're having a absolutely fabulous day. And so usually I try to keep my podcasts very timeless, right? Because I want them to be evergreen, that you can hear this in January, you can hear this in June, you can hear this 4 years from now. But I feel like at this time of year, it makes sense to talk about things as we kind of start to shift our mindset towards the end of the year, right? We have a few weeks left of the current year, but it's also timeless because anytime you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm so frustrated, I want to kick a wall, I'm doing all the right things. Now's the time. Like, this can be that kind of jumpstart that you need to shift the mindset. And so, you know, where I'm going today is that I want to talk about the 5 common missteps that many perimenopausal women over 40 are making on their journey to being healthier and fitter. And, I get it, right? We're on this roller coaster ride, and no one told us that perimenopause would last 7 to 10 years. Most of us think of, when you think of someone who's menopausal, you're not like, I'm 35 and I'm menopausal. Like, what? No one pulled us aside and said that. And no one pulled us aside and said that, a lot of the trials and tribulations that we're going through it is our body's descent into menopause, where most of us just think of like menopause is like, I no longer get my period. Well, perimenopause is what's really, messing with us for the bulk of the period. And I remember earlier in the podcast, I had a menopause expert on, and she referred to it as second puberty. And if you can remember yourself, or maybe you have children who are currently in their teen years, and just all of the craziness, right? The highs and the lows, even in like 5 minutes that your children have experienced, you're probably like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I get that, right? So instead of our hormones going up the scale, our hormones are now coming back down the scale, but we're still getting crazy. And as I, really unpack and really learn and dive more into what all of the various functions that hormones do, it's it's like it's so fascinating, what all the intricacies of our bodies. It's just so like, you know, what connects to this and what connects to that, and that what the decline in estrogen causes this and the decline in progesterone causes that. And it's just really fascinating because there are areas of the body that you're like, wow, I didn't even realize. Because most of us, we all took biology, and you were told, how your period works. Boom, that was it, but they didn't really break down the sequencing of what estrogen's job was, what progesterone's job was, what the luteinizing hormone did, it talks about, why we get a period and what happens when you don't get a period and how a baby is, but we don't really ever get into the intricacies of all the other systems that our primary hormones influence. So that was my little sidetrack, but let's get back. So I know that many of you are on this roller coaster ride battling these like stubborn weight loss plateaus, and you're just like, I am doing everything right. What the hell? And so today I want to take a nice deep dive into the 5 common missteps that might be sabotaging your journey to health. And more importantly, what the heck to do about them. So the first one is execution. And I say execution because so many times when I ask someone, when I first start working with them, I'm like, okay, um, you know, give me a couple of steps that you plan on doing this week. And it's literally 10 steps. And I'm like, okay, can we scale that back? We think that in order to execute, it has to be this 300-step plan. And this 300-step plan typically doesn't work out for most of us, unless you're just that person. And 9 times out of 10, most of us aren't that person. Most of us are very organized. Many of you listening to me, you are that type A plus plus person who is so flippin' organized. But all it takes is one thing to unravel, and you're just like, damn. And like the whole, like a house of cards, or Jenga, right? You pull one cube comes out, and you're just like, damn it. So here's where, I always ask my clients, the key here is execution. And if I'm going to execute, the key is I really have to really look at my whole life. And I challenge my clients to break down the execution into 90 days. So that way we're not looking so too far in the future that we get frustrated, that we're like, okay, in the next 90 days, what does my life look like? Right. So it's like, am I traveling? Are my kids, at the peak of their sports or practice or rehearsals or whatever your kids might be into? Maybe you have a spouse. Is my spouse traveling a lot, and a lot more burden of the household responsibilities are going to follow me? Am I in a period in my work life that there is a major project coming on? My husband works for a big software company, and the bulk of their revenue comes from the middle of November through the end of December. So November, December, they're just like flat out like making sure everything is working. So maybe you're in that type of business as well. I have a client who is a CPA. So pretty much from, the when we get our all of that tax stuff. So pretty much at the end of January, beginning of February through the end of April, she's like flat out. So here's where, when we look at the execution, on paper, that plan might look absolutely fabulous. However, can you do it? Can you do it consistently? And is the plan like, I'm only going to do this for 90 days and think that we're going to be fixed? Or are you looking at this as, this is what my life is going to be? And I'm okay with 90 days. This is what I focus on. And then I might open it up a little bit, and then change a few things, because I feel that many of you are dieters, right? You are stuck in that, like, I must be on a diet, and if I'm not dieting hard, I'm not going to get my results. But have you fully considered it's your dieting that isn't giving you the results that you want? And I have a couple of podcasts that I talk about how I like to look at dieting as a seasonal thing. So, think about seasons out in nature. We have winter, we have spring, so forth. And so I like to look at every season, so AKA 90 days. In 90 days, what does it look like? So if I'm really busy, I might not have the time to work out as much as I normally would. So I would always tell people, okay, so since we're pulling back our workouts a little bit, we're going to pull back our food a little bit. Not diet, but it's not going to be, we're not going to eat the way we were if we were working out 4 or 5 days a week, lifting heavy stuff. So it's like really kind of looking at, how can I execute it? And I'm working in reps. I talk about reps a lot. And so reps are like, can you realistically carry out this plan? Again, looking at my life, what's going on? Am I remotely excited about it? I share this story because it hits home, because, when I was a personal trainer in the gym, I would see it all the time. Women would be like, oh, I'm doing such and such class because Sally Sue lost 400 pounds doing that class. And I'm like, well, do you even like that class? No, but Sally Sue lost 400 pounds, so I'm doing it. Right. So you're not, and then at some point, your life changes and you're not excited about it. Where when I first really started to get into working out, there was this kickboxing class, and I absolutely loved this kickboxing class. And it was on Wednesday nights and it was on Saturday mornings. And regardless of what I was doing on Wednesday, I stopped, dropped, and rolled to get to that class because I was excited about it. Right. So I want you to have that same excitement. Prior to Rona, there was a Monday morning spin class, and it was one of my favorite. I absolutely loved the spin instructor. It was something that my husband and I could do together, and it was like a class I didn't miss. So I want you to have that much excitement in what you are doing, because when I'm excited about doing it, I want to keep doing it. If I'm not excited, all it takes is maybe one little thing, and I'm like, yeah, I'm good, I'm out, thanks. But also, is that activity stressing you out? Is it causing you to always overthink what you're doing? I'm a moderator of a Facebook group, and I see it all the time. And one of the in the Facebook group, it's about monitoring your heart rate. And so and I'm working on finding someone to really help us dive deep into heart rate training, and more about zone 2 cardio. So in this Facebook group, a lot of the talks about, cardio and strength training. And so people are like, oh, am I doing it right? My heart rate, got into the 80s for, 20 minutes. Is that wrong? versus how do I feel, right? So we get so caught up in like doing it right that we're not, I'm like asking, is what you're trying to achieve, is it stressing you out to the point that it's just sucking the enjoyment right out of it? So let's forget about wondering if I'm doing it right. And let's ask ourselves, am I able to take consistent, meaningful action? Right. And that's the biggest thing, is like, can I, whatever I choose, can I be consistent with it? Is it, is it bringing me joy, or is it sucking the life out of me? Because if it's sucking the life out of you, it's time to find something else, girlfriend. And it's time to find something else. Which brings me to consistency. And so many women discount consistency. And maybe you have to go a little bit slower in the beginning, and that's okay. That's okay. But what can you start to do on a consistent basis? So, me, I need a definition. I love me a definition. So, consistency is basically, it says it's a noun, and it's about being the same. And it says the quality of always behaving or performing in a similar way, or always happening in a similar way. Right. So it's like, I want you to think about, what is it to be consistent? It's having the same attitude or achieving the same level of success at something. And so if you haven't been successful, I want you to ask about, what does your consistency look like? Because if I'm always stressing about, am I doing it right? Maybe I start to freak out that I have to double down, because that was my problem. I would be like, oh, the scale didn't move, I gotta double down. Oh, I still have belly fat, I gotta double down. So I always was like, double down, double down, double down. But I didn't give myself the runway to say, okay, instead of doubling down, what am I doing consistently? And what am I doing inconsistently? And when I look at that, what's going to be the driver for me? What can I focus on? What feels easy for me in the moment, right? Because consistency is like the North Star. It guides you to success. It's that bright beacon of light that says, walk in this direction. And now what I think causes a lot of women to be challenged is that consistency is boring as F. Boring. There's no glitter, there's no rainbows, there's no unicorns dancing through. It is boring. It is showing up no matter what life throws at you. And in my Lifestyle 66 program, we start focusing on 1 to 3 things that feel like a challenge, but are also doable. And it's about making it part of your rhythm. And that's where I feel that most of us miss the mark. We're doing things that aren't in our rhythm. And I remember when Rona first hit, and everyone was struggling to, like, pretty much it was kind of like someone scratched their record, right? And I remember most people were struggling with trying to like find that routine. And one of the things that I worked with was like, you know what? The one consistent thing I know, given that the world is just crazy right now, is my workout. Now, did my workout look the same as it did if I was going out to a gym? No. And I had to get over that. But I said, you know what? I'm still going to set an alarm, even though I had no place to be for like 4 months. I set an alarm and I went down in my basement and I worked out for 30 minutes. And so that's what the consistency looks like. What is that thing? I have a client who she's like a workaholic, workaholic. And, she would carve time out for her walks. And I'm like, great, awesome. Now, as a woman over 40, walking is absolutely fabulous. And I'm never going to take away someone's walks. However, if we really want to have body composition change, we got to lift. And our lifting doesn't have to be hours and hours and hours. So for her, I said, in my membership, my Fit Girl Magic Society, I give 3 workouts. And I said, you know what? Set a timer and for 15 minutes. And I said, get through as much as the workout you can in 15 minutes. And then when you're done, stop and mark where you left off. And the next time, you go do the workout, start where you left off, right? It's 15 minutes. And so I said, instead of your walk being a full hour, make your walk 45 minutes so that you can do this workout, or wake up 15 minutes early. And so it's like finding the space in our day without having to make these like radical changes, and being able to find that rhythm. And so eventually she's like, you know what? That was, such a subtle change. And so because it was so subtle, she was able to do it. Now she's up to 30 minutes a day and she feels fabulous. But it wasn't like, you must work out 90 minutes, you must, because trust me, I lived in that world. And if you were a client of mine maybe 15 years ago, I'd been like, if you're not doing all these things, you're screwed. That's not the case anymore, right? It's working with you to get consistent, working with you so that you look back and you're like, I got some wins under my belt. And when you feel like a winner versus a struggler, damn, it is life changing, because then you want to do more stuff. You'll be like, okay, this feels good. What can I add? And we're adding like little doses. I want you to think about it like this. Have you ever like cooked something? And so, you're cooking it and you're following the recipe, and then you give it a little taste and you're like, something's off here. What is it? What is it? And you're like, oh, okay, maybe I need a little bit more salt, or maybe I need a little bit more cumin, or maybe I need a little bit more paprika, whatever it is. And, you make some refinements to what's already working. And that's what consistency is. It's like, let's step up and start to see what are the things I can do time and time again. They might be boring, they might be basic, but are they giving me the results that I want? And it has to become part of the rhythm of your life. It can't be only when things are going right, because guess what? Life's gonna life, and life always lives when you don't want life to life. All right. The third mistake here is the fear of failure. And this is huge. I'm guilty of having this. If you are a perfectionist, I am a recovering perfectionist. But guess what, right? Change is meant to be uncomfortable. And, over the last probably 6 months, I've been doing a lot of uncomfortable things. And it just is like looking out on a cliff that you're about to just dive into, that you're just like, holy moly, what am I getting myself into? But I have to embrace it, because I know what I'm doing right now isn't giving me what I want. And here's where you have to have that hard conversation with yourself, that hard look in the mirror, and just say, Sarah, is what I'm doing giving me the results I want? And if you look in the mirror and you're like, no, then guess what? Something's got to change. And as I've said previously, it's not everything. Not everything has to change. Boom, 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 boom. Just let's do like it in increments, right? Small things. What feels good right now, right? So, I mentioned the client. 15 minutes of strength training felt really good. Awesome. Great. Maybe for you, adding a vegetable to your protein shake in the morning that you're already doing, that feels good. Great. Awesome. Do that. Maybe adding a good fat to your lunch. Great. Awesome. Do that. Maybe upping your protein by 1 ounce for every meal you eat. Great. Rock on with your bad self. But it's like, what are the little things, there's a great video, and I'm going to write myself a note to attach it in the show notes. There's a video of ice melting. And so ice melts at 200 and so ice freezes at 32 degrees, right? So at 32 degrees, you might see some like glisten on the ice cube. And then it's, as you slowly raise the temperature, 30, 33, 34, 35, I might start to see some changes. But most of us, if we were looking at that ice cube, we'd be like, I just turned up the heat to 50. Why isn't it just like a pool, right? Like Frosty the Snowman, when he went into the greenhouse with the little girl there. Was it Clara? If you know her name, leave me a note. But he melted immediately, and all that was left was his top hat and his cornpipe pipe. So I want you to look at that video and just be like, it is these small incremental changes over time that is going to give you what you are absolutely looking for. So if I always fear that it's not happening fast enough, or am I doing it right, I'm always going to be shifting left, right, and zigzagging and not being able to see that forward progress. And I'll be honest with you, it's frustrating as fuck, but that forward progress, girl, it ain't how people say you're gonna lose a half a pound to 2 pounds a week. That shit, that's ship is sailed. If you are in your 40s, you've been on over 10 different diets, and your body's like, girlfriend, I know exactly what you're doing, and I ain't gonna give it to you. So you have to start giving yourself the grace. And instead of us looking at the scale, ask yourself, what am I being consistent with? Right? Am I like, going back into my cocoon because I'm nervous about what's going to happen if I add that vegetable? What's going to happen if I add that protein? What's going to happen if I, take 15 minutes out of my workday to do a strength training exercise? And, one of the ways that I was able to get over the fear, and one of the ways I'm challenging you to get over your fear, is what do you have to lose by giving it your all for just 30 days? What do you have? What do you have to lose? 30 days. And the best way to do it is, I always challenge my clients to take pictures, right? Take pictures or put on a pair of pants that you haven't worn in the last 2 to 3 years, right? Let's not say I'm trying to get into my high school pants, because that ship is set. But I've tried to get into my pants that I haven't been able to fit in the last 2 to 3 years. Use that and pictures. And those are going to be your biggest source of change. And even if it's really like subtle changes, or grab an old, a tape measure, and use that, and, go around your boobs, go around where your belly button is, go around the widest part of your hips. If you want to get fancy, you can do your right leg, your right thigh, and your left thigh, calf, so forth, and your neck. Or you could just stick with those 3 points. And, every week, every other week, take pictures, take measurements, and see how you go. Because I'll tell you, especially in over 40, that scale is just going to, just mess with you. And it's not the only judge. The other way we can start judging how our consistency is doing well: am I hungry? Am I hungry? Am I hungry at all? How's my energy? How's my craving? How's my sleep? Right? Because those are indications of, is my body working on all cylinders, or are there some tweaks that need to be made? All right. So let's give ourselves that 30-day runway, that 30-day ramp, to be like, what does consistency look like for me? Okay. And if I say that, okay, I'm gonna give myself those 30 days, we need to be clear, right? We have to have a clear vision of what it is that we're looking for. And I always say that, like, clarity is like your GPS. It's, if you and I were sitting here in Boston, and there's a street, Mass Ave. I gotta Google how. I use this example a lot, so I'm gonna have to Google how long Mass Ave is. But let's just say it's 10 miles. So Mass Ave starts in downtown Boston, and it goes all the way into Lexington. So it passes through Boston, Cambridge, Arlington. It passes through 4 towns. And so if I just said I want to get to Mass Ave, and I wasn't crystal clear, and I wanted to get to Boston, Mass Ave, and I didn't put in the right address, I could end up 10 miles from where I want to be. And so the more clear I am about, this is what I want, and the more clear I am, the more likely I'm going to get it. If I just kind of take half action, if I kind of be like, well, I kind of sort of want to lose weight, but I kind of want to run this, I kind of like, you need to just be like, put on your blinders and be like, look, I'm looking to lose this belly fat. That's my vision. Like, I see what I want. I don't want belly fat. Great. Let's work on that. From there, it starts at the top. Lose belly fat. Perfect. Now, let's give 1 to 3 things that we can focus on to start to lose that belly fat. So knowing that it's nutrition, sleep, stress, and workouts, what are the things that feel easy for you right now? And then we start, and we build, okay, how are we going to execute against that plan, so that we have specific and measurable. It is like our compass, right? It is our, like, okay, if I really want to lose this belly fat, here are my 3 things that I'm doing, and I'm going to do this for 30 days. and then I'm going to reevaluate. I'm going to reassess. But my ultimate goal always remains the same. I used to do a lot of coaching for fitness competitors, and so one day they're like, yeah, definitely, I'm gonna do a show this spring. Awesome. All right, let's start setting ourselves up to get to that show so that we're not sprinting to the finish line. And then maybe like 1 or 2 months later, oh yeah, changing my mind, I'm gonna run a marathon instead. And I'm like, okay. So then like the training shifts a little bit, and then it's like, oh yeah, I'm not running that marathon. I found out it's on my kid's birthday, so I can't do it. So let's go back to getting ready for a show. And it's like this like radical pendulum swing that makes it really challenging for your body to keep up with it. But if we say ourselves 90 days, this is what I'm working on, we're losing that belly fat, that is my ultimate goal, and I'm working these 3 things, and every 30 days I'm going to reevaluate, reassess. Boom, here's where goals are met. Here is where you will just blow your own goddamn mind. Which leads me to the last thing. It is our self-doubt, right? I don't know how many times I've seen people, their goals slip away because you are like, I don't know if I can. I don't know if that's me. I don't know. And I get that. Like, I have self-doubt too. Like, sometimes I look at stuff and I'm like, oof, that seems like really, really hard. And that's okay. Like, it's okay for something to seem hard. But then it's like, is this just my kind of like initial gut reaction? Or is it really hard? Is it really hard because I just don't want to change? Like, what does it look like? And you have the power. The one thing that I have learned over all the years of working with different mentors, I have the power to rewrite my story. I have the power to speak to. I have the power to rewrite my story. And so do you. So all it takes is taking that leap and taking that shot. So to get a little pop culture here. So Taylor Swift was playing in Kansas City. She was playing at their stadium in her world tour. And Travis Kelce was like, she's kind of cute. And he wrote her a note, and he gave her a friendship bracelet. And he's like, I had nothing to lose. I had to shoot my shot. Right. And he shot his shot. And guess what? They started dating. Now, at the time of this recording, they're still dating, but who knows what'll happen, Taylor. But, it's like, you have to shoot your shot. You have to say, you know what, this opportunity is presented to me right now. Am I going to keep passing it by, putting it off? Or am I going to be like, you know what, I got nothing to lose but the wait. I remember there was this woman, this is early on in my business, and I was just trying to figure out, like, what was I going to do? Who was I going to be? And, you have self-doubt, like, who am I to start my own business? Who am I to like not go and get a traditional job? And this woman was like, the time's going to pass anyway. So you might as well pass the time doing what you like. And I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. Because doubt is part of the process, but you have the power to write your story. So now, here's where you kind of start to say to yourself, how do I like fire through all these self-doubts and tell yourself, like, my why, right? The best way I know to deal with any self-doubt is to come up with your why. And your why is the motivation, right? So why do you want this? Why you're listening, you're 20 something minutes into this podcast, is it because my voice is amazing? I don't know, possible. But why are you listening? Why do you want this weight loss? Right? Because that is your motivation. And your why, it doesn't have to be this like big altruistic thing. I used to think, when I first kind of started hearing this notion of why, I used to think my why had to be this big altruistic thing, like, oh, I want to save kittens from trees, and help old people cross the street. But my why is really vain. I'm brutally honest. My why is, I am vain. And my why is, I want to be able to stand in front of my clients and look like I walk the talk. I want to be able to, when I'm 90 years old, walk unassisted. I want to be able to still lift heavy as hell well into my 90s. So that's my why. I want to have the mobility. That's my why. So when I'm laying in bed and, in the wintertime here in Boston, it's cold, snowy, and dark, and the alarm goes off at 5:30, and I lay there and I'm just like, girl, laying here ain't going to get you to where you want to go. And that's my why. That's the like kick in the rump shaker. I need to get myself out into it's taking, going downstairs to my basement and working out, or going downstairs and getting in my workout. And over the years I've scaled back on what a workout looks like for me. My workouts are 30 to 40 minutes, and that's okay. I don't want to spend the 2 hours. And if that's you, rock on with your bad self, sister. But those things are just not for me anymore. So if you're ready to break free from these mistakes and transfer your health and fitness journey, I have something tailor-made for you. It's called Lifestyle 66. This program is all about teaching you how to be consistent based on your rules. Like, no matter how busy life gets, we are going to nail the basics so that you can bob and weave through the challenges of your life. There is a checklist of steps that you can take to customize this to really fit your unique life. So if you're ready to join me on this journey and unlock the best version of you, do me a favor, head over to the show notes so that you can take the first step to being happier and healthier, and finally take some control of your life. Because guess what? You've got the power to rewrite your own story. So no more waiting, no more saying, when the kids do this, when my job does that, when my spouse does that. No, now's the time. Let's get ready to rock. Let's get ready to just finally just do this once and for all. All right, magic makers, have a fabulous day. And as always, I really appreciate you. And if there's someone who needs to hear this message, can you do me a favor? Can you share this podcast with them and let them know that, hey, this is the year. This is the year that we're no longer going to wait. This is the year that we're just going to finally get our poop together and finally nail what it looks like to be consistent with my health and my fitness. All right, ladies, have a fabulous day, and I will talk to you next week.